Hello, welcome to Studio Storytime. We are doing things a little differently today because we were having some technical difficulties. So this is a YouTube link today instead of a live. So this should be kind of fun. Hopefully you guys are able to see the video okay. But we're going to continue right where we left off last Monday. We are reading stories out of the Illustrated Book of Ballet Stories. Right now, we're about 3/4 of the way through the story of Aurora, Sleeping Beauty. So we're gonna pick up right where we left off. Aurora has just fallen asleep and the whole castle has fallen asleep with her. As always, I will read the page and then show you the pictures. I believe we are going to almost finish the story today. We're gonna read 2 sections today. So this section is called A Vision Appears. Aurora slept undisturbed in the highest turret of the palace for 100 years. Songbirds nested in tangled briars and thick moss carpeted the stone stairs, and still no one came to break the spell. Meanwhile, in a forest many miles away, a young prince, Florimond, went hunting one day with his friends. Everyone could see that the handsome prince was bored with the hunting and only joined the dancing so he would not offend his guests. Perhaps you would prefer a game of hide and seek, his partner suggested cheerfully, but the prince wanted only to be left alone with his thoughts. Let the royal hunt proceed without me, he finally commanded, dismissing his puzzled friends with a flourish. Suddenly, a voice echoed like rustling leaves in the stillness. "Why are you so unhappy?" asked the lilac fairy. Startled, Florimond bowed low before the shimmering creature who addressed him. "I don't know why," he admitted sadly. "I will show you something wonderful that will lift your spirits. Look," she urged. The prince raised his downcast eyes and saw a shimmering vision of Aurora, as light as a cloud. "How beautiful she is," he exclaimed, and all at once the vision stood on the forest floor, surrounded by tiny fairies. The prince tiptoed nearer and stretched out his hand to touch her. Each time he came closer, the fairies flew between them, but at last, for a single instant, he held the vision of Aurora in his arms. The next instant, she was gone. "Oh no," he cried, "please bring her back. I love her." "If you love her," the lilac fairy answered, "you must go to her yourself and tell her so." "I would go anywhere to find that princess again," Florimond declared bravely. So the lilac fairy led him across the fields and over the silvery seas to the palace where Aurora lay dreaming. A bunch of different pictures. We'll read one more page. This is called The Awakening. The shadowy palace walls towered over the lilac fairy's boat like a sleeping giant. Prince Florimond's heart pounded with excitement and fear as he pushed open the heavy rusted gates and crossed the courtyard. Inside the cracked oaken door, the king's guard lay in snoring heaps. The hallways were dark as caves, not a single candle winked in the blackness, and Florimond could not hear anything but the creaking floorboards under his feet and the rattle of the wind in the tall towers. The lilac fairy glided along beside him, lighting his way with the glow of her magical presence. Drawing his sword, Florimond bounded up the palace stairs, slashing at the knotted vines to clear a path. The dust stung his eyes and filled his throat. Spiders scurried over his hands and mice skittered under his feet, but he climbed higher and higher, guided by the lilac fairy. When he reached the topmost tower, he found Aurora stretched out on a silken bed, still as a corpse. "She's dead," he groaned. "What shall I do?" "She's not dead," promised the lilac fairy. "Think back. You must let her know you love her." Florimond paused for a second, then leaned down and kissed Aurora tenderly. Her eyes fluttered open, and taking his hand, she sat up and thanked him with a smile as bright as a star. Down in the throne room, the king and queen were brushing off cobwebs from each other's crowns. As they rose to their feet, Aurora burst into the room, pulling Florimund behind her. "Here is the prince who broke the spell," she announced, "and he is the prince I choose for my husband." I guess we might as well finish off the story, huh? There's one more page. The wedding. In a twinkling, 100 years of dust was swept away. The palace was polished until it shone, and bustling cooks baked dozens of delicious cakes, while scurrying footmen filled all the rooms with fragrant wild roses and sprays of lilac. On the day of Aurora's wedding to Florimund, sunlight as golden as honey flooded the banquet hall. Royal guests came from far and wide to wish the bride and groom long life and good fortune. Aurora herself invited her closest friends from childhood, who she introduced to her new husband one by one. First, the fluffy white cat picked her away across the floor. With every step, she glanced over her shoulder and winked at Puss in Boots, who bounded after her and scratched her back with his prickly paws. 4 of the smallest pages, carrying slim, gilded branches, created a forest for the little Red Riding Hood. Licking his lips hungrily, the wolf chased her through the trees. Then he pounced on her from behind, slung her over his shoulder, and lopped off with a growl. Next, pair of bluebirds swooped and dipped above the guest's head. One was really the enchanting Princess Florine, and the other was teaching her how to fly so she could escape from her enchanter. Their sparkling plumage reflected the sun as they soared in and out through the open windows. Finally, Princess Aurora and Prince Florimund crowned the wedding celebration by declaring their love for each other. "I love you," murmured Aurora. She was a little shy of speaking in front of so many people. "I love you even more," answered Florimund. The lilac fairy hovered over their heads, saying, "Sharing your love and trust, you will surely live happily ever after." So here are all the funny characters at their wedding. Bluebirds, Puss in Boots, Red Riding Hood, and the wolf. And that is the end of Sleeping Beauty. So next week we get to start Giselle. That's our next ballet story that we'll start. Hopefully we'll be back on Facebook Live next week. But I hope you guys have enjoyed Studio Storytime with me today, even in our little different format. But thank you for being with me, and I'll see you next week. Bye.